In 2011, Yvonne Baldelli's new life in Panama ended in tragedy. What led to her untimely death? Yvonne had moved to Bocas del Toro, a beautiful place with lush landscapes and calm waters, hoping for a fresh start. But her dream ended in violence, leaving many unanswered questions. The camera shows Bocas del Toro's peaceful scenery, green hills, still waters, and sunlight shining over the island. Then the focus shifts to Yvonne, smiling by the water, full of hope, a far cry from the tragic end that awaited her. When Yvonne left the United States, she wasn't escaping something. She was searching for peace and a change of pace. Bocas del Toro, with its relaxed vibe and stunning views, seemed like the perfect place to start over. But life on this small island soon took an unexpected turn. Yvonne, described by friends as kind and adventurous, opened a guest house to create a welcoming space for travelers. It was a dream she had worked towards for years, and she was finally settled in a place she could call home. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. In 2011, Yvonne's life was tragically cut short. Her body was found under suspicious circumstances, and the details of her death remain unclear. Authorities acted quickly, but questions about who or what was involved still linger. Yvonne's death is just part of the story. Beneath the surface of this peaceful island, tensions were rising. Conflicts, old rivalries, and local politics soon came to light, each adding complexity to the mystery. Was her death a random act of violence, or was there something more behind it? A series of troubling events followed. Some believed her death was connected to her business, while others suspected darker forces at work in the town. Was Yvonne's peaceful dream an innocent pursuit, or had she unknowingly stepped into a dangerous world? The investigation into her death went beyond the police. Many locals who knew Yvonne started looking into her past. What did they uncover, and why did it take so long to find the truth? As we put the pieces together, we learn more about Yvonne's life, the people she met, and what may have led to her death. The more we look into it, the clearer it is. There are still many questions, and some may never be answered. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel to avoid missing any new videos. Your support means a lot to us. In this documentary, we will look at a real case that happened. Yvonne Baldelli grew up in Southern California, where the sun always seemed to shine and the opportunities for adventure were endless. She was an easygoing person, drawn to new experiences and places. She wasn't just about living a typical life. She wanted more. Something different, something exciting. Her story took a big turn when she decided to leave Los Angeles and start a new chapter. Yvonne and her boyfriend, Brian Brimiger, decided to move to Panama, a country that offered a completely different lifestyle. It was the kind of place where the pace of life was slower and nature took center stage. Panama, with its rich culture and tropical beauty, was the escape Yvonne had been looking for. The couple packed their bags and left behind the busy streets of Los Angeles for the lush landscapes and serene waters of Bocas del Toro. A fresh start in paradise. At least, that's what it seemed like. Visuals of Yvonne smiling, the sun on her face, show a woman ready for something new. Then we see clips of Los Angeles, the city she left behind, and finally, stunning views of Panama. The water, the trees, the sky. All of it feeling like the perfect setting for a new beginning. Yvonne and Brian found their way to Bocas del Toro, a region known for its laid-back lifestyle, its natural beauty, and its vibrant community. Yvonne quickly got to work on opening a guest house, hoping to create a space where travelers could relax and enjoy the peaceful surroundings she had fallen in love with. At first, everything seemed perfect. They were settling into their new lives, meeting new people, and enjoying the island's quiet charm. Yvonne was excited about her business, and Brian was there by her side. They were a couple starting over, carving out a life in a place that seemed like the dream they had always wanted. But things started to change. It wasn't long before the peaceful island, which had felt like paradise, began to show a different side. Tensions started to rise, and the small community of Bocas del Toro, which had once seemed so inviting, began to reveal a few secrets. Some of these secrets would be hard to ignore. Yvonne, despite her sunny disposition and positive attitude, was facing challenges that no one could have predicted. She was running a business, but business in Panama was more complicated than she had imagined. There were issues with locals, tensions over her new guest house, and whispers in the town. Some thought she didn't belong. Others thought her business was stepping on toes. What was supposed to be a fresh start began to feel more like a struggle. And as the couple tried to make their lives work, Yvonne found herself caught in something much deeper than she had ever expected. Behind the scenes, there were growing pressures that neither Yvonne nor Brian was prepared for. Tensions in their relationship seemed to grow, and the quiet island was hiding more than anyone realized. It was all adding up, but no one could have guessed what was about to happen. In September 2011, Yvonne and Brian moved to Isla Caranero, a small island off the coast of Bocas del Toro, Panama. They didn't immediately settle into a grand house, though. Instead, they started off living in a simple hostel, a temporary home as they got their feet under them in a new country. The island was quiet, its natural beauty was overwhelming, and the days passed slowly. Just what they had been hoping for. Yvonne quickly made friends with locals and fellow travelers. She was eager to get involved in the community, learn about the culture, and of course build a future for herself and Brian. They both threw themselves into their new life. But over time, Yvonne started to notice something wasn't quite right. Brian, who had once been her supportive partner, began acting strangely. At first, it was small things. A momentary hesitation when she asked about his plans for the day. A change in his tone when they spoke. Then, there were the late nights. Brian started spending more time on his computer, often leaving the hostel late into the night, claiming he was working on something. But Yvonne couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As the weeks went on, Yvonne found herself starting to question the nature of their relationship. She knew something was going on, but she couldn't put her finger on it. The tension was building. One day, she stumbled upon an email exchange between Brian and another woman. The messages were innocent at first, casual even. But as Yvonne kept reading, the tone shifted. The emails grew more personal. There were plans to meet, promises to see each other soon. The words revealed a side of Brian that Yvonne had never known. A secret life that she hadn't been part of. She confronted him about it, but Brian's response wasn't what she had expected. He was defensive and evasive, denying the seriousness of the situation, downplaying the connection with the woman. But Yvonne wasn't convinced. The cracks in their relationship had begun to show, and it felt like the first real sign that something wasn't right. The small hostel life, which had once seemed perfect for a fresh start, was starting to feel isolating. Yvonne found herself stuck in a cycle of confusion and distrust. But the tension didn't just stay between them. Over time, she began noticing strange behavior from Brian around the locals too. Some of the residents of Isla Caranero began to act distant toward her, almost as if they were keeping secrets. Yvonne, a friendly and open person, couldn't understand why the community felt colder. Brian's behavior continued to raise suspicions. He was withdrawn, spending more time online and in private conversations. Yvonne didn't know if it was the stress of their new life or something deeper, but she felt like the island, once a symbol of a new beginning, was now a place where she was alone in her thoughts, left to wonder about her partner and the life they were supposed to be building together. As days turned into weeks, the tension in their relationship continued to grow. Yvonne tried to push it aside, convincing herself that maybe it was just the stress of the move or the challenges of starting a new life in a foreign country. But the emails, the secrets, the coldness, it all kept building. One evening, Brian took off again, saying he had to meet someone. Yvonne, now feeling more and more disconnected from him, decided to follow. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being kept in the dark about something important. What she found that night would only add to the mystery. In late November 2011, Yvonne Baldelli vanished without a trace. Brian Brimager was the last person to see her, and he immediately began acting in ways that only raised suspicions. When Yvonne's family couldn't get in touch with her, Brian took matters into his own hands, sending misleading emails to her family back home in the US. He told them Yvonne had decided to leave and was taking some time for herself. These emails seemed odd, too calm, almost scripted, but they kept Yvonne's family from realizing something was wrong at first. But as the days passed, the silence grew louder. Yvonne's family became worried and reached out to local authorities. As the search for Yvonne began, Brian continued his strange behavior. He accessed Yvonne's bank account multiple times, pulling out money for his personal use, all while giving the impression that she was simply off somewhere, doing her own thing. He even went to a bar, seen in photographs, as if life were continuing on as normal. Yet the people around him saw a different side. He appeared detached, not concerned about Yvonne's disappearance at all. Behind the scenes, the situation was starting to unravel. The search for Yvonne intensified, but there was little to go on. No one had seen her leave the hostel, and no one had heard from her since her last conversation with Brian. As the investigation unfolded, there were growing doubts about Brian's involvement in her disappearance, but he continued to deny any wrongdoing, all while maintaining an unsettling calm. The breakthrough came weeks later, when a disturbing discovery was made deep in the Panamanian jungle. Yvonne's dismembered remains were found, hidden away in the dense forest. The horrific discovery sent shockwaves through the community. How could someone so full of life end up in such a brutal way? As the investigation into Yvonne's death began, Brian's actions became even more suspicious. He tried to cover his tracks, destroying evidence and providing false statements to authorities. He mocked the investigation, making insensitive comments as though he were above it all. His behavior didn't just raise alarms, it confirmed the worst fears of those who were following the case. Visuals show the crime scene, the dense jungle where Yvonne's remains were found, and reenactments of Brian's efforts to cover up his tracks. We see him going through the motions, destroying crucial evidence, trying to hide the truth, and blatantly lying to investigators. His calmness, even arrogance, as the investigation unfolded only made him seem more guilty. As the investigation continued, Brian's deceptive actions began to unravel. The emails, the money withdrawals, and his disturbing lack of emotion all pointed to one conclusion. Yvonne's disappearance was no accident. Someone close to her had taken her life, and that person was Brian Brimager. Brian's story was falling apart, but the truth was still hard to piece together. Why would someone who had come to Panama for a new start end up in this nightmare? Why would Brian, a man who once seemed to care for Yvonne, turn on her so violently? The answers were just beginning to emerge, and the full story of what happened to Yvonne Baldelli was far from over. After weeks of investigation, the truth about Yvonne's death finally started to take shape. Brian Brimager was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. The case had taken a turn no one could have imagined when Yvonne first disappeared. What seemed like a peaceful new life in Panama had turned into a nightmare that would forever change the lives of those who knew her. The trial began, and it didn't take long for the evidence against Brian to pile up. His emails, which he had sent to Yvonne's family, were read aloud in court. They revealed his attempt to cover up the crime, misdirecting everyone about Yvonne's whereabouts. The actions he took after her death, accessing her bank account, spending her money, and acting as if nothing had happened, were presented as key pieces of evidence. It painted a disturbing picture of a man who had no remorse for what he had done. Throughout the trial, Yvonne's family sat in the courtroom, their grief on full display. They spoke of Yvonne as a bright, loving woman who had so much life left to live. Victim impact statements were read, with Yvonne's loved ones describing the pain of losing her and the heartbreak they felt seeing her life taken in such a brutal way. The family's emotional testimonies made it clear. This wasn't just a murder case. It was the story of a daughter, a sister, a friend, whose life had been stolen from them. In the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The prosecution laid out every detail of Brian's actions after the crime. The evidence was clear. He had not only murdered Yvonne, but had also gone to great lengths to hide the truth. His lies, his efforts to destroy evidence, and his chilling indifference to the investigation all pointed to his guilt. As the trial went on, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that Brian was responsible for Yvonne's death. Then came the sentencing. Brian Brimmager, facing a possible life sentence for first-degree murder, made a plea deal with the prosecution. He pled guilty to second-degree murder, avoiding a lengthy trial and a harsher sentence. In exchange, he was sentenced to 26 years in prison. For Yvonne's family, the plea deal felt like a bittersweet resolution. They had hoped for justice, but no sentence could bring Yvonne back. The emotional toll of losing her would never go away. The family was left to pick up the pieces, their grief unspoken but deeply felt. At the sentencing hearing, Yvonne's family members spoke again, telling the court about the pain and emptiness that Brian's actions had caused. They expressed their frustration at the plea deal, but also their desire to see the case come to a close. They had fought for justice, but the wound left by Yvonne's death would never heal. In the years that followed, the Baldelli family continued to remember Yvonne. Memorials were held, and gatherings took place in her honor. They shared stories of Yvonne, laughing through their tears, remembering the woman she had been before the tragedy. They held onto the good memories, even as the shadow of the crime lingered in their lives. The trial and sentencing had brought some sense of closure, but for Yvonne's family, the pain of losing her would last a lifetime. Brian Brimmager, sentenced to 26 years in prison, would pay for his crime, but no amount of time behind bars could change the fact that Yvonne's life had been brutally taken, leaving a hole in the hearts of those who loved her. As the years pass, the memory of Yvonne Baldelli remains. Her life, her dream of a new start, and the injustice that ended it all. The family, though still grieving, continues to keep her spirit alive, finding strength in the love they shared with her and the fight they put up for justice. As we dig deeper into this case, it's important to approach it with respect for the victims and their families. Yvonne Baldelli's story is tragic, but it's not about sensationalism. It's about remembering her life, her dreams, and the people who loved her. We aim to tell her story honestly while treating her and her family with the dignity they deserve. True crime stories should be more than just the crime itself. They're about the people affected by it, victims, families, and entire communities. Yvonne's story isn't just about murder. It's about a woman who wanted a better life, a family that lost her, and a community left heartbroken. We spoke with experts to understand how to handle these stories with care. They reminded us that every case involves real people and real grief. When telling these stories, we should focus on the lives impacted, not just the crime. In Yvonne's case, her family continues to live with the pain of her loss, and that's what we should remember. As you watch, think about the complexities of true crime stories. These aren't just about solving crimes. They're about understanding people, the choices we make, and their consequences. We hope this documentary reminds you how important it is to approach these stories with care and respect. Now we want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Brian's actions? How should the media tell true crime stories? Share your opinions in the comments below. Your thoughts help us continue telling these stories the right way. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Also, check out the next video on your screen. It's another real-life story you won't want to miss.